Can art defeat the enemy? Can we defeat the enemy with art? Can a painting destroy capitalism? Can a poem kill Hitler? Can a little beaded necklace that you made with a kit from a craft store decapitate 1,000,000 cops? I don't know. It's an interesting question, though. Let's explore it. What would that sound like?
Get on the fucking ground! Get on the ground! Rage Against the Machine video, bullets everywhere, everything's in black and white. Helicopters, fucking blades are spinning, the guy in the SWAT gear is running towards you. Get on the fucking ground! You're like, I wrote a song for you!
I wrote a song! Oh, shit. Oh, fuck, that didn't work at all. I don't know. We're gonna explore this today. Hi, I'm doing Mark Maron shit on the podcast now. I have 1,000,000 pedals open in front of me. Seriously though, this is a topic that I think is really interesting. I'm going to talk to a couple interesting people today of the comedian-minded brain type who had a bit of a run-in each, respectively, with some alt-right anti-masker types and some cops and even the Supreme Court, very possibly, entire governments and things like that because of satire, you know, which is an issue near and dear to my heart. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Sometimes I'm a vulgar materialist and I say, no, fuck you. Only overthrow capitalism can solve all this shit. But you see how much propaganda the enemy uses, and it works to their great advantage, you know? So the question is, do we do it back? Can a hand turkey explode an ICE agent? I shouldn't use those guys as examples anymore, but you know what I mean. Can art be a weapon? I don't know. We'll find out today. Today we have comedian John Merrifield, who had a little run-in with the feds, much like myself. I get a lot of these stories shared with me after my thing with ICE. And a lawyer from Canada named Caryma Sa'd. who makes comics, oddly enough, and seems to piss off all the right people with them. So enjoy the show. We'll talk to those people. We'll do some jokes. We'll talk a little bit at the end, and that'll be the show. All right. Enjoy the show, everybody. I fucked it up.
Lock them into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a three-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
Let's talk about carrots. Let's intro it that way.
Yeah, I already recorded you saying that, so that's how we're starting the show. We're talking about carrots. It's Space Jam 3 over here, bitch.
Right.
You know what? I thought there would be more. I thought I could riff on carrots harder than this, and it turns out there's not a whole lot material in the
Well, we should
carrot
explain.
well.
So Jake was like, all right, we'll start in a second. I'm just going to finish eating this carrot. Then John said, oh, we can eat carrots? I got some carrots right here. And then I also have carrots, and it turns out they are the same very provocative, sensuous brand as Jake. Bunny Love, the Bunny Love Company, fresh organic carrots with, this woman makes Lola Bunny look like Betty White.
Wait a
She
minute.
is
Wait a minute.
provocative.
There is like a hot Lola Bunny on the carrot bag.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Hold the bag up again, because I just
Dude.
saw the eyes, and otherwise it's just a bunny.
Okay.
And now you're talking shit about Lola Bunny?
Look
There we
at
go.
the way she's holding this carrot. And
It's
She's
very phallic.
flirty, for sure.
She
but
wants
I
to-
don't think...
This is a sexual
This is a
reference
small
here.
business owner.
No,
and
she's
you're trying
got-
to objectify her.
She's got a
for our
holster.
listeners?
she's got little cartoon hearts jumping out of her head, which is how you know a cartoon is horny.
Because she's in love. She is horny for the carrot.
Just for carrots. Just for the
You're
idea of
not
selling
involved.
carrots. I
I mean,
don't
there
know,
are people
man.
who are in love with the Eiffel Tower and can only get off by like thinking of the Eiffel Tower, and they go there and masturbate in front of it. You know, I don't
What?
think it's.
I'm one
Yeah.
of those people, actually.
You don't
There you
see
go.
the way this bunny lady's looking at me, though, Alex.
Yeah, everybody Google, if you're listening, Bunny Love, Bunny-LUV carrots, and you
Did
will
you just
see
make
what we're
that
talking
thing
about.
up about the Eiffel Tower? or
No,
is
that's-
that-
No, there are
Does
people
everybody
who.
know this?
Yes.
It feels like
It's
a
well
Rule
established.
34 thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been, you know, if you were someone growing up who didn't have cable and were, you know, the parents weren't home in the daytime, you flip on the TV, you see these people getting interviewed on the talk shows. They're real. Bunny Love
They're real.
should be on them too. Should be on there too. John,
for
what kind
Bunny
of what
Love.
is your brand of carrots?
Oh shit! I didn't bring them with me. I'm afraid to look because if they're the same carrots, I'm gonna lose my shit.
It's going to be really
Right.
weird.
Yeah, go
Let's
look
just
at
say
the
it is for
brand.
the
Are we,
sake of-
if we're all in New York, then that probably might happen. But let me see.
We like to have our guests introduce their brand of carrots before we tell anyone who they are.
Yeah.
Ideally.
We're going to
That's the most
There's a
sell
way
important
these things are done.
You might know this guy from eating Bunny Love carrots or
No,
Dole.
I know just Dole. Yeah, they're just.
Dole, okay.
Yeah.
I remember the first
Big
time I ever heard of
business.
Dole. I thought
No.
Dole was associated with Bob Dole.
You can't start
because
talking about Bob Dole. We'll get derailed.
We
All right.
don't
All right,
have
all right.
time
You're
Hello,
gonna
for
fall
that.
into a Dole hole.
Welcome to the show. We can't get it stuck into a K-Dole, which is what... That's when Anders does Kratom and talks about Bob Dole. Dissociating.
It happens all the time.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod Damn America, the Gothic Socialist podcast for the stupid children, and so on and so forth. That's the new thing I'm adding to the intro to the show, the Zizek line, and so on and so forth.
I like it.
I'm Jake Flores. Alex Patak is here.
And so on and so forth.
Anders Lee is here.
Anders Lee here and all the rest of it.
And we are
As
joined
David
by...
Harvey would say.
Oh, nice. Oh, I like that. Okay, yeah.
All the rest of it.
All the rest of it. And we are joined by comedian and Antifa super soldier John Merrifield. Welcome.
Good to be here, everybody.
Yeah, man. Okay, so I know a little bit about your story you're going to tell us. I'm going to be honest with you, I usually read before we do this, but I went to a really good party last night and did not have time to prepare this morning. But I know from talking to you a little bit about what happened. Can you just go ahead and walk us through this entire debacle that happened with you down in
Louisiana.
Yeah, in
Is that correct?
country,
You're
the
wanted
swamp.
by the
On the
state
bio.
for laughs.
Swamp cops are after you?
Yeah, all of those things are true. Basically, Jake, what you have here is I've been locked into situations of helplessness and hopelessness. And, oh, wait, it's positions, isn't it? Fuck, I was trying to reference the intro.
No one knows what
Anyway.
he's saying. It's crazy.
Lock them in positions. All right, so there's like some things you have to know before you can really understand what exactly is going on. These are like I wrote down some FAQs that I get every time I talk about this. One thing people want to know is because this whole thing spawned from my meme page called Cajun Memes, so a lot of people want to know what the hell is a Cajun. So a Cajun...
That's how this started.
Cajuns
Cool.
are Cajun is short for Acadian, which is Acadian. It's like a shortened word, like the way that old cowboys used to say Indian instead of Indian.
Yeah.
So that's what a Cajun is, and so they're descendants of people who migrated from like eastern and northern Canada. There was like a great expulsion. I don't know all the details. I like did a rundown of like the basics to explain all this shit. And so we all settled in Louisiana, basically.
Okay.
And so that's what Cajuns are. And for a time, they were like synonymous with Creole, but there's been like a lot of differentiation in recent years.
And to be clear, you are of Cajun extraction.
As far as, I mean, like everybody who was born in South Louisiana, not everybody, but most people who were born in South Louisiana identify as Cajun, but there's no
Okay.
real way. I mean, like, I have no idea if
Right.
how much Cajun blood I have in me.
Yeah,
Right,
put
you could do the 30 for 30
away
test, but
for
it wouldn't-
5 seconds.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
way more cultural than it is and it's technically
Interesting.
ethnicity, but it's more of a cultural thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so another thing that people want to know is what a parish is, because in Louisiana we have parishes rather than counties, and a parish is just basically back in the days when the Roman Catholic Church was in charge of Louisiana. All of the territories, like all of the division, was made based on the church parishes, and so they just kept that instead of switching to counties. It's the same, effectively the same thing.
Yeah, because like France owned all that shit before, right?
Yeah,
That's where all this is coming from.
Yeah, and they
Before
they
it
gave
was
us
Cajun
Louisiana and a
style.
statue. What?
Do you know James Carville?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know him, but I know who he is.
But because he strongly reps the Cajun lifestyle and the Cajun culture.
I don't know about
He
that. He's
has-
a little bit too bougie to be repping the Cajun culture.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't he have the ugliest home on earth in South Louisiana?
I know very little about this man.
Okay.
That my mom used to love him on Fox News.
he
Gotcha.
does evil
Or hate him, I'm not sure.
neoliberal shit, and then he goes Cajun style while he's like
got it.
Cajun style.
He's got an
overthrowing.
wow.
incredibly tacky house that is super expensive that I think is in the region. But
Well, that's very Cajun to have a very expensive tacky house. That's a Cajun. That's a Cajun thing. Not a
Okay.
lot
Let
of
me
people
tell
do that
you.
who aren't Cajun.
I would not live in that house for all the carrots in the world, John.
Nice. Okay, so,
All right, so the last FAQ is okay. So if you don't know already, I'm being sued by my hometown, which is Lafayette, Louisiana, and mainly it's like the mayor president who is after me. And instead of a mayor, we have a mayor president because our parish is consolidated with the city of Lafayette. So Lafayette Parish has like a bunch of cities within it that are consolidated with Lafayette, the city. And so the mayor president is the mayor of Lafayette, but he's also the president of the parish. Holds both positions simultaneously.
what a backwards place you're from.
Yeah, I know. So all of this to say the rest of the story. Fuck. All right. So anyway, what had happened was the mayor president and his administration were trying to defund some recreation centers on the poor side of town where I grew up. And
like in an 80s movie where you have to beat him with skateboarding to save the recreation center.
Yeah, we were gonna dance, but then I decided to make these Facebook events.
I see. Okay.
And so it was just like really frustrating, and I felt very powerless because I'm in New York City, and like the reason, I mean, there's like a multitude of reasons why I left Louisiana, but the primary ones are like just for my own mental health. And so it's like I still have a lot of sentimental attachment to my home, and like everybody that I grew up with and everybody that I know and love lives there still, or at least 90% of the people I know and love. So like things that happen down there affect me because they affect the people I care about. And when this recreation center thing happened, it was like rec centers that I used to play at when I was a kid, and it was just like it hit close to home because it felt like the city is always like making moves to help the rich donors and like to do like face saving things to make them look like they care about poor people, but they don't actually. Like right now they're enforcing some super strict panhandling stuff where like cops are being threatened with punishment if they don't enforce it. But it was just really frustrating to see them do this to the rec centers, and then like the outrage was like not enough to do anything. So I thought, and so I was like, all right, well maybe I will, get the conversation going. And I did this satirical Antifa Takes River Ranch event. River Ranch is the rich neighborhood in my hometown.
So you made a Facebook event to scare old people with, like, you've been invited to the Antifa takeover of this neighborhood. Yeah,
kind of. I didn't even really invite anyone except like a couple of my friends. I just posted it to my Cajun memes page. Like I posted it, like the event was created by my meme page. Like it wasn't even my name on it. Like people know that I run the page, but that was like strategical because I needed people to know that it was a joke. And the event like said ridiculous things like only card carrying Antifa members should come by, and like only people in uniform in their Antifa uniforms, and it was said arms optional, legs encouraged was one of the things that people seem to really like. But like things like that were supposed to clue people in that it wasn't serious, and it did because no one showed up except for the entire battalion of police that the mayor president dispatched.
Oh man, that rules.
Engage.
They're just
there. We're there at the time because all the city's resources and the police force was distracted by this one fake event. Were there crimes going on in other parts of the city, coordinated?
I highly doubt it. I doubt that there were any other more serious matters that they could have been attending to.
Yeah.
What's really
as
funny
socialists, that's something we should work on.
Yeah. What's really funny is that they didn't even man the vehicles that were parked. Like they parked a bunch of vehicles in this neighborhood, a bunch of police vehicles, but they were largely empty. I had a friend who went and checked, and there were like nobody in the cars. It was just kind of like a show of force. And then they had 2 police roaming the neighborhoods, but that supposedly was just like normal. Like they already do that because it's a rich neighborhood. Right. And so like there's a lot of like ridiculous contradictions because they sued me saying that this is all my fault. But when you go back to the news story, like the chief of police for the second event, there's another one that I did. He says that like they responded to it. They didn't respond to my thing. They were there for a different reason. Like it was ridiculous. So the second thing I did, this was after the first one. The second thing I did was I did Antifa Takes Acadiana Mall. And after the first one, no one showed up. I thought for sure they're definitely not going to send police to another one because I already know it was a joke.
No.
Yeah, and I mean, and so I did it again, and they evacuated the mall.
Wow.
with guns drawn, like
no shit.
There were rumors.
You can't tell who's Antifa once it's happening.
Right. But there, right. And so, I mean, I want to say all the obvious things, like Antifa's not an organization. But in fact, the second event
even Joe Biden knows it. He yelled it at the debates this year.
Exactly. And thank you, Joe. That's why we love him. And
that's why we love him, folks.
And so the second event, like I started the event off with the words Antifa, Acadia Antifa is back and more organized than ever.
I see what you did there.
Right? I don't remember what the rest said. That I can't access that event anymore. But
so did they think that like okay, this first one, it was actually real, but then they saw all our big guns and strong men, and they were scared off, but this time they're going to show up in bigger numbers, so we got to be prepared for that. Did they think, like, the whole time it was real, or did they register that the first one was fake, but they got fooled again, or...
Well, the first one was made over, I want to say it was like 2 weeks before the scheduled date. Oh, and the time I set the time for Saturday at 4:20. Like it was...
Right, it's weird because there's like this dual thing that's happening where all of the jokes that you're putting in, people like us are going to look at and go, haha, I get it. But then there's like a detective at the police station, like 420. Do you know what this means? I've discovered that through research that it means a secret code that means marijuana and all this stuff. And
Hitler's birthday.
Yeah.
420 is like the equinox for drug users. It's the time of their highest power level.
Yeah,
it
that's exactly why I said it for that time, Alex.
So the basis of this lawsuit is that it was a waste of money and resources, but like what money was spent that wouldn't have been spent otherwise? So like was there extra money spent for this event, or like what?
They don't detail any of that in the lawsuit. They just say that they're suing me for damages no greater than the amount of $75,000.
And you have that lying around, right?
Oh yeah, of course I do.
Okay.
They
the carrot stocks.
They set it to 75,000 because if it's any more than that, then it goes to federal court, and so their little their southern crony judges won't get to look at it and say
we can't send it to real court.
Yeah,
Definitely won't hold up. So
yes, I mean like that makes it so obvious, and they don't like why not just specify an amount? Why not just say 75,000? But the lawsuit says an amount no greater than $75,000. Like, we want to make sure that it doesn't exceed this number, no matter what it tallies up to.
But you definitely cost the police department exactly that much money, according to them, somehow unquantifiably and unitemized.
Right. What I also think is funny is that, like, if I did cost them more money, they will just take the loss as long as it doesn't go above $75,000.
Yeah.
Because then it goes to federal court. So, like, it's not even about recouping the losses. It's about teaching me a lesson, and lesson not learned.
Well, clearly, yeah. When's the third one going to happen?
I made a third one, and it was just a fundraiser event, but it was like Antifa Takes Lafayette Consolidated Government or something like that. And no, it was Antifa Takes Hurricane Laura, and it was the location was set to Lafayette Consolidated Government. But it was just a fundraiser for the hurricane.
Have you considered, like, Antifa, all of the undercover Antifa members who are posing as police officers, reveal yourselves on a given date to just strike paranoia in the hearts of these police officers?
Right, like Devilman Crybaby. Sorry, oblique anime reference, but that's kind of the plot of that show.
Yeah, the one other funny thing about it is that... I mean, it's subjective, but I always thought it was funny that the police didn't investigate, like, even a little bit. Like, they didn't call me. They didn't, they didn't ask anybody related to me if they might have, like, had any reason to believe that the events were real. And they also said, like, the government said publicly after days of news stories about it being fake, that they knew it was fake, because I had already said by the time it happened several times in the news that it was fake. Like, I wasn't trying to hide that it was fake. It was the whole point of the joke. And so, like, they're now trying to sue me for events that they already admitted were fake. And then, for the Acadiana Mall thing, they did not admit that that's why they were there. Like, they said publicly that they were there for something else, not specifying what that something else.
This is an awesome display of cop logic.
They didn't investigate you, so what is the progression for you? You just got, like, a letter in the mail, hey, you're being sued by the state of Louisiana for $75,000?
Well, first I got called by the FBI, and they just wanted to know. Well, first they went to my mom and my stepdad's house, and they left a business card. And then when I finally talked to them, they were like, "Yeah, because of the pandemic, if we would have come to meet you in New York, it would have taken months. So we're just calling you." But like, he's just saying that to let me know they know where I live. But he was just basically like, "Is this real or not?" And I was like, "It's not real." And they're like, "Okay, just making sure." And that was it. Like, they did their due diligence. They asked the question, and then they didn't act any further because it wasn't real. And if the police had done that, like, But instead, they not only dignified my first event with a response, but they dignified my second event with a response, which like is like twice as silly.
They did the Principal Skinner, I was here to get directions to get how to get away from here thing.
Yeah.
Or like,
Can the businesses at the mall sue the police for causing them to lose business?
I mean, I do not know.
Okay.
But I do want to say that there were some people who were like, they lost hours, and that's like never my intention to like cost people, working class people money. So when this was all going down and like all my posts were getting a lot of shares, I just like posted that if anybody wants to be reimbursed for the hours they lost, that I got you. And then I did a little fundraiser on my Facebook for people to help me reimburse them.
Oh,
and
nice.
So everybody who hit me up, it was like 5 or 6 people, everybody who hit me up got fully reimbursed for the hours that they missed. And that offer is ongoing for anyone who's there.
Oh, that's great.
that's very cool of you. Although I don't think it's your fault that the police don't understand that an Antifa event shared on Cajun memes page on Facebook is...
No, I don't think it's my
real.
fault, but the police aren't going to pay these people back.
Yeah,
I
fair.
actually lost, so I was supposed to do a stock deal there worth $3 million. So if you could add me to that, I'd appreciate it.
Anders. He works for the Russian government.
That's true. So do you have legal representation? How's that working?
Yeah, Beiser and DeRoos law firm are representing me.
Bowser and DeRoos, okay.
And they're civil rights attorneys out of New Orleans.
Nice.
But my point of contact is Andy Beiser, and he's like licensed in New York and Louisiana, so that's helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Wait, is your case ongoing? I thought it was already over.
No, I'm appealing. We're appealing to the Supreme Court.
Oh, wow. Holy shit.
Of Louisiana or the big one?
We already appealed to the Supreme Court of Louisiana, and they decided to let it keep going because we're trying to have it thrown out on like no merit,
Yeah.
And because my lawyers are arguing that there is no duty of like service on my part or duty of care on my part to where I did something that I had a duty not to do. And so there's no way like that they can charge me because there's no way they can charge me money for the thing that happened because it was more of a negligent like overreaction. And so it's not something that a reasonable, government would have done. It's also like textbook First Amendment violation. Like they're suing the government is suing me for a joke. Like,
right.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
This is what gets me about the entire thing. So there's a write-up about you that we read, and they try to do the newspaper thing where they're like, this simple story has more going on than you'd guess, because these joke events, is it not the police's due diligence to at least show up in case counter-protesters arrive? And it's like, no!
Yeah.
It's not. If anything, if this is a problem with anybody, it wouldn't be the comedian who posted on the Cajun memes page. It just means Facebook is like a public menace.
Right.
Yeah.
Because people are so confused, they're showing up places with guns.
Or like we're just living in a Philip K. Dickian reality where like you have to assume any bit could occur at any time that would cause a dumb person to then respond to it and think it's real. So there's just like hypothetical quantum counter protester Proud Boy guys everywhere technically, because like I get a lot of like because the ICE thing happened to me a couple years ago and it went viral. I get stories like this a lot. Like a lot of comics hit me up and go, dude, fucking FBI came to my house, the CIA came to my house, fucking whoever, and then we're all kind of in this weird little group chat together. We're like, what did your officer look like? It's just this odd thing that keeps like happening. But like, it's so pervasive that it kind of seems that the new reality that we're living in with like social media and us trolling on it and shit like that is creating this situation where like police are like gaslit out of their minds and don't know what's real or not, and they're like fighting against like the Onion and satire and comedy and shit, and like it's not our fucking fault, it's their job is dumb,
Yeah.
Right, you make one phone call, and all of a sudden a SWAT team has to check and make sure your refrigerator is not running.
Yeah, they're just getting pranked constantly, and they're like agitated and have guns and shit. They're like, you have to fucking tell me if my refrigerator's running.
My mom went
for
to
$75,000.
My mom went to rent a car because she got in an accident. It wasn't her fault, and she's fine. But she got in an accident, and she had to go rent a car. And the guy working at the rental place, while he was wearing a mask, she recognized his voice, and it was the guy I went to high school with. And she was like, "Oh yeah, did you know I'm John's mom?" And she's like, He goes, "I'm gonna punch that guy in the face next time I see him." And she's like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because I have friends on the force, and he called in a bomb threat at the mall." And like, that's just not true. Like,
Yeah.
For
Right.
bomb threats, you can go to Cajun Bomb Threats page. Different Facebook page. Completely different administration.
Cajun bomb threat, it sounds like a really good hot sauce.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
He threatened
It's
to
ironically a stand at the mall.
Yeah.
Which used to be a great gag before 9/11. Teenagers would do that, and it was like, oh yeah, the Secret Service shows up, they make sure it's fake, and then they move on. And that could have been, not saying, not encouraging anyone to do that in any time.
Don't
but,
do that.
Yeah.
Asterisks.
But like this easily could have been, if they were really concerned about it, they could have sent one cop to each of these places, made sure it's not a thing.
Right.
and
Why
gone
did
back.
the entire army show up? Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
make any fucking sense. Also, at the same time, we were there for something else, and we didn't fall for it, but we had to bring a tank. Like, none of this shit
Right.
adds up.
I mean, like,
But-
I don't know this town, but there's a very high chance there was nothing else to do that day.
Well, that
Yeah. We have report
ahead.
that someone has counterfeited 1 million doll hairs at the mall, and a Hertz donut, and all the other things.
I mean, is that kind of the case in Lafayette? Because having lived in like the Midwest in Minnesota, I've driven through like smallish towns like exurbs and suburbs and stuff, and they'll have NCIS vans, and this is after the show, and which like the show was basically made up. That like before the show, nobody had an NCIS crew in whatever city, but like Forest Lake, Minnesota does not need an NCIS division, but they got the fucking van because they have these $300 million contracts with whatever. Has that been the case in Lafayette for a while, that there's just a heavy spending on policing and just a lot of paranoia about crime and
You could have a whole podcast with how much corruption is involved in the governing of the city of Lafayette and the parish.
Okay.
So I'm not even gonna try, but yeah, there is a lot of overspending in regarding legal matters that have nothing to do with me, and so this is just like another example of that, them overreaching and just also I don't know, they're just trying. It's a lot of it is saving face, it's not even fiscally responsible. It's just you embarrassed me, and that's what a lot of there was some people in the who run the utility system in Lafayette that supported the mayor president's opposition in the race, and then they started an investigation into the utility system just as retaliation, and they didn't find anything, but it just inconvenienced this guy, I guess, or whatever. I don't know all the details, but there's a lot of stuff like that happening in my hometown, and so this was my way of trying to shed light on that.
Right.
Yeah,
It'd be
cool.
funny if this was actually the one town in America that is not over-policed. It's funny that the budget's been low. I don't know how this happened.
Yeah. And I take it money is probably needed elsewhere in the city. Is that accurate? Is that fair to say?
Oh my God. So because of my event and the second event, the mall thing was a response to a police shooting. This guy named Trayford Pellerant was shot in the back 7 times by 6 different
Right.
cops as he was walking away from them, as you were usually doing when you're shot in the back. And he had a knife, which fuck them. It makes me so mad. Even if he had a gun, that's not illegal. But he had a knife. Tackle the guy. I don't give a shit. But they shot him a bunch, and people were obviously upset because it was all caught on video. And again, I felt powerless. There was protests happening, so I wanted to do something again to shed light on the injustice happening in my hometown. So the Antifa Takes Acadiana Mall had a link to the fundraiser for him, for his family, and stuff like that. It was a joke, but it was also if you went to click on the tickets link, it would just be the fundraiser link. But so I don't remember why I started telling you about the policing thing, but it was so it was a response to that, and then because of the protests of that shooting, the mayor-president of Lafayette, right after a hurricane where the people in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and surrounding areas are like evacuating and like seeking asylum and shelter from places that weren't hit as hard, like Lafayette, the mayor-president says that the protest makes it too unsafe. And so he told all the people who were wanting to open their doors to people seeking shelter from the hurricane that they could not take in refugees. And like, that's just such a cop-out. Like, I don't even understand like how it would have hurt him to let the refugees come. I think he just wanted to like demonize the protesters.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
The core of this issue is something we're going to be dealing with for a long time, which is the like mental schism this country has in terms of what protesters are and like what Antifa is, you know, because we're all on the same page that like Antifa in terms of like a terror cell or whatever they're marketing on as Fox News is not real. It's not an organization you can show up and like destroy. But these people, like that guy thinks you called in a bomb threat. For real. Yeah. Like, he's like, Antifa was involved. Those are some bad dudes. I've seen them as the villains of several 90s films. I just don't know how it's going to resolve from here.
The beginning of the lawsuit, it starts with a quote from Donald Trump's Twitter, and it's the one where he, like, declares Antifa terrorists. But it's not and their argument is not that because he said it, then like they're terrorists. Their argument is that because he said it, people believe they're terrorists, and so I shouldn't have done my event because the president made everybody scared.
Oh man, that fucking rules. That's so funny.
Well, maybe they're scared of you, and that's why they haven't asked you any questions at all. Is they're scared you're gonna whip out some knives or throwing stars?
Nobody from the government in Lafayette, Louisiana, outside of the Cajun FBI agent who called me, has made any attempt to contact me since this all started.
Wait. The FBI agent was Cajun?
Yeah, he was like Cajun accent. It was so funny. Like I'm just like picturing like some guy with overalls and a badge.
That fucking rules.
Can I ask you how?
Agent
this is
Cajun.
sort of off topic. How accurate is the film Southern Comfort? Have you seen that?
I've never seen.
Okay.
Who's
it
in it? I'm
rules.
gonna watch it.
It's a Walter Hill movie about a National Guard unit that goes to the bayou and to do training, and then they piss off some locals, Cajuns, and they get in a battle.
It's a horror.
Basically.
It's basically like a it's almost like Midsummer. It's like a folk horror film about like Cajun people.
I mean, it depends how Cajun these Cajuns are. Because if they're like true backwoods, like living next to the swamp Cajuns, then maybe that could happen.
The thrust of the
I would
film
support
is like they're mysterious and no one actually knows what they do in the swamp woods and stuff. It's a pretty good bad movie. I think it was kind of a knockoff of like Deliverance is kind of what was going on when they made it.
I gotta check it out. That sounds fun.
Well, anyway, so is there anything we can do to help? I mean, can people support you, or how can people follow along, I guess, as this plays out?
Well, our local DSA, I mean, I'm not involved with them, but I think that if you donate to our local DSA, I can like send you a link.
Cool.
They're doing a lot of work for hurricane victims. They're also like they have like a community fridge going on. They're just doing a lot of good work, and they're doing all the work that I wish that I was there to be able to be helping with.
So you, like a good comedian, are just using the spectacle of this to fix other shit. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, like, also, like, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I always, like, or on social media in general, I'm posting, like, half jokes and half me yelling about stuff that's happening in my hometown that's really fucked up, or stuff that's happening in the world.
Oh, yeah. We'll put in the show notes how to follow you and how to donate and all that stuff. Cool, man. Well, yeah, good luck with your landmark Supreme Court case. Hopefully it'll be in the history books someday.
Yeah, hopefully they don't even let it go forward and they just throw it out so I can get on with my life.
Yeah.
That would also be pretty cool.
My own little lawsuit.
Are you going to, not to tease anything upcoming, but you're going to potentially, it's possible that you might countersue.
There is a possibility that I have grounds for a civil rights lawsuit, yes.
Awesome. Cool.
Well, I hope.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man.
Keep eating those carrots.
Mm-hmm.
Keep eating those
You guys
carrots.
too.
Keep eating those carrots.
That should be like the new sign-off.
Yeah.
We kind of just make up a new one every time we do this. So that's it for now until something dumber comes along. And if you're you're back in New York, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a New Yorker, check out John Merrifield on stage someday.
Yeah, someday.
I don't know why I said someday. I meant any time.
Sometime. Yeah.
Sometime. There you go.
It will happen on a day. Yeah. Unless, or maybe at night. Probably more likely
Might be
at
a
night.
night.
Yeah.
All right, and so on and so forth. All right, let's move on. All right, we are now joined by a lawyer, Caryma Sa'd. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Are they called lawyers or barristers in Canada?
I'm a barrister and a solicitor, so
Okay.
you have to do both. But mostly I do litigation, so I guess I'm a barrister.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
And isn't it? Sorry, I'm already going off on tangents here, but don't you have to buy like a ridiculous amount of like robes and like legal, like official gear that you have to wear in the Canadian court?
It depends on what level of court you're practicing in, and honestly, the pandemic has changed that quite a bit because they aren't really expecting people to dress up in robes at home, except in limited circumstances. But that is one of the many barriers to access in the profession. Like, and it's crazy expensive, actually.
Yeah.
So it is. Yeah. There's.
So you may not have as much student loan debt as Americans, but you do have robe debt, legal robe debt.
It's not that bad.
Okay.
It is pretty bad. And law school debt here probably doesn't compare to the States, but relative to other degrees in Canada, it's a serious problem, and it obviously affects who gets into the club at the outset, which is something that they need to look at.
Wow. Okay, interesting. We're learning so much weird regional stuff about all the people we're talking to today. Well, that's not the reason we're talking to you today. The reason we're talking to you is because
I could go on and on and on about Canadian Parliament and
What's your favorite kind of robe?
Oh, man. Dude, just trying to moderate this
I feel like a
podcast
wizard
sometimes
actually
is
when
like,
I wear them, so it's not so bad.
Oh,
all right,
that's
now you're speaking my language. That is pretty cool. Now I have to stop myself from asking you what Hogwarts house you're in and all that shit. Let's talk about what happened, though. So you recently had a run-in with this guy, Chris Sky. Can you tell me where this all started?
Yeah. So back in April, I published a comic about Chris Sky, who had recently been added to the no-fly list. So I thought that there was kind of a fun irony there.
And for context, like you make like satirical comics.
Yes. I work with a couple of illustrators, and I've basically been documenting the pandemic, I guess, but just local, international politics through these editorial cartoons. So I focus mostly on politicians, but occasionally there's people just of public interest, and Chris happens to be a public menace. So he had come to my attention, and he gained notoriety basically for going maskless into grocery stores and bullying his way into leaving with maple syrup and just pulling stunts like that.
Maple syrup. Okay.
So anyway, I published this comic, and he really did not like it. Had super thin skin and essentially sicked his 200,000 followers on me. So I got hundreds of one-star Google reviews, like every type of message and comment that you can imagine. And that's kind of the origin of my, we call it a feud with Chris Sky.
Yeah, I can relate. I have a similar relationship with the alt-right types here, and it's very bizarre just seeing them sort of creep into like, oh, they're in my LinkedIn today or whatever, you know? What are they trying to do in here? So this guy's like an alt-right culture warrior, anti-masker type.
Yeah, he calls himself a freedom fighter. His theme is united non-compliance. So the idea that we can just will our way out of the pandemic, this is all a ruse, and everyone stop wearing your masks, don't get the vaccine. And then to boot, he happens to be just kind of a despicable person in terms of his views on the Holocaust and like just he
Somehow, though, it's always also he's Nazi too. It's weird.
Does he think the Holocaust didn't happen or was good?
he he says that there's no way to know for sure it was 6 million. So he kind of implies that it's maybe an over exaggeration, but without really saying what he thinks did or didn't happen. And he also uses terminology like useless eaters in like the modern day context. Like he borrows a lot of that terminology.
You know, how would anyone know anything, really? You think about it.
True. This can be
Interesting.
deceiving.
Okay, well, so what happened after he reacted to your comic?
I just made more comics. And I kind of leaned into it because at that point, like, it was already chaos and mayhem. So there were two options, right? I could quietly go away and try to salvage and get reviews taken down and just be a good girl and not delve into this. But that wasn't the route I chose. So I continued sort of picking apart his videos. Like I say, there were several comics. I made some wrestling style skits. And ultimately, he actually got kicked off of Instagram. And I'm not taking full credit for this, and I don't even know how much a credit is attributable. But I do know that dozens of people who were observing this targeted harassment started making complaints, and there was this momentum that resulted in his primary and secondary accounts getting deleted. So like 250,000 followers probably total lost.
Okay.
And this is so. What is the relationship between sort of the Canadian political imagination and free speech? Because I've also heard it's a little bit different from the United States, where free speech is thought of this sacrosanct thing. But is it a bit different in Canada? People are a little more relaxed about censorious measures here and there.
So our constitutional regime, which maybe isn't the starting point for a lot of people who talk about free speech, but the way that it actually works here, it's not an inalienable right. You do have a constitutional right to freedom of expression, but there can be limits imposed, and those limits need to be sort of demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. So there's a test that's associated with it. But I would say that because there's this acknowledgement that there's no absolute right to free expression, not as much emphasis is placed on it as compared to the US discourse. Now, that's different among sort of right-wing groups, I would say, and they latch very heavily onto this idea of free expression and free speech. And, to the detriment, I think, of people who do want to exercise that expression. And when there is censorship, any sort of calling out of that turns into, that's not a real issue here for us Canadians. So it is a fraught landscape, I would say.
Interesting. So something I've kind of noticed in looking into this is how much of an alt-right would you say exists in Canada? Is there is it behind by a few years, or what's going on? Are these people informed by our freaks down here, or the ones in Europe, or are they their own thing, or how's it all forming up?
I think that there are absolutely sort of international links. And, I was at one of their anti-mask, anti-lockdown rallies just this afternoon, and there was someone with a Trump flag. and that's not uncommon to see.
Okay.
So there are for sure connections. I think that, you ask, are we a few years behind the States? Probably. But we're catching up.
I was imagining it like when another country gets a TV show after we've watched it already, and it's like, oh, they have friends now or whatever.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, the unfortunate sequel, I guess.
Yeah.
Or whatever season. So we're catching up, and I've spent a lot of time over the past year or so just observing people in the anti-mask, anti-lockdown group, and the connections to the alt-right and how it seems to be a pipeline into conspiratorial thinking. And it's emerging as a very pressing issue, especially as, arguably we draw closer to the end of the pandemic, knock wood, who knows. There are very strong divisions, and I don't know how it will be reconciled. And looking sort of south of the border, I don't have a lot of confidence in that being a smooth transition.
Yeah, it's funny that these people like constantly compare the pandemic to the Holocaust and also don't believe in the Holocaust. Like, what a feat of mental gymnastics.
It's a weird co-option, like they co-opt the language of oppression, right? So, slavery, tyranny, segregation, lynching.
Yeah.
Those are all words that they use without a trace of irony, in regard to public health measures that they see as unduly oppressive, I guess. But yeah, there's no real sort of analysis or insight and kind of looking beyond, these words have meanings and definitions, and they don't really care.
So tell me how we get from here to, I saw like a flyer for a thing where you were like kind of jokingly gonna like, battle the guy or whatever. It was made up to look like a wrestling match or something. What happened there?
So, from April to July, I've just been roasting this guy online, and he doesn't really have sort of the capacity or the wit to fight back. He blocked me early on in the flame war, and I just...
Oh, that's funny.
So he tapped out.
Yeah.
And the show was really... It was meant to be not a debate with Chris Guy. He was the main event. But really, it was a comedy show put together to try and subvert some of the messaging that Chris Guy and his followers adhere so strongly to. And the real sort of highlight was going to be an interview with a survivor of a forced labor camp in China. And the reason for that, that's language that they co-opt as well. So this is becoming like China, or like communism, and, just, again, words without meaning. So, he was a draw, obviously, and a portal to his own sort of follower and a way to break into that echo chamber. And that's kind of what I had envisioned that this would be. And it didn't quite go as planned, because he and apparently I are such controversial figures that there was a blockade that prevented sort of setup and the actual production of the show. And so I canceled the show, but the blockade remained in place. Chris Guy still showed up, and he hopped the barricade and then is now bragging about beating 50 Antifa, which, didn't happen. But that's kind of what we ended up with.
So I guess the reason that this is all very fascinating to me is because we're talking about kind of three things intersecting, which is satire, or comedy or whatever, what this alt-right guy is doing, and then also classical anti-fascist organizing, because the concept of physically deplatforming, making something like a barricade and saying we're not going to let this person speak, I guess I'm not entirely 100% skeptical of it, because on some level, when you listen to Richard Spencer or Milo Yiannopoulos nowadays, they're mad. They complain and they say like, I can't get on stage anymore. People keep throwing stuff at me. And it's like, to some degree, shit fucking works because they just give up after a while. But to another degree, though, if you don't do it correctly, I think if a situation was created where some people calling themselves anti-fascists or a black bloc or whatever the fuck showed up to an event like this and they came with the intention to make a spectacle of stopping a guy like Chris Sky from making it to the stage, and then he made it anyway. Unfortunately, that fuels a lot of what people like Chris Sky use to pander to their fan base, because they kind of portray themselves as being in a perpetual state of overcoming someone who's trying to censor them. This happens a lot with my pet alt-right people over here. I have this fucking beef with this dumb podcast called the Legion of Skanks. They have Milo Yiannopoulos on all the time. They have all these alt-right people all the time. And they have this journalist named Seth Simons that they fixate on, and me, and they do the same thing with both of us, which is that they tell their fans, like, these guys are trying to stop us, but the show's going to go on anyway. And it's like, no one is stopping you. You know, I didn't show up to your fucking thing to stop you. That journalist just wrote about you. They're allowed to do that or whatever. But something I kind of noticed about their propaganda is this, the kind of like Ubermenschian heroic figure that they display themselves as is constantly overcoming, like, we did it even though Antifa showed up or whatever. So to me, this seems, whatever you feel about it, to be a bad outcome, right? Because that sounds like it would play to his base pretty well.
It was very counterproductive. I think, clearly there was some miscommunication and perhaps just people thinking that they know best, right? And, this wasn't a rally where Chris Sky was going to be given a microphone and let's hear your thoughts on the Holocaust. I'm fascinated to know. Absolutely not. In fact, he was 15 minutes of a 2-hour program. And it was structured in such a way that, he wouldn't be able to rely on his usual talking points, or he would throw a fit and end the interview early, which, was a possibility as well. But we didn't get a chance to see any of that happen. And you're right that the fact that he was able to get through that formation with, relative ease, backfired. And, that's now sort of a success story for him. And in the grand scheme of things, right, like, you win matches, you lose matches, and that's what happened. And we just got to move on and keep it, pushing forward. But it was a crummy outcome. And, I lessons learned, I think, in wanting to maybe improve on communication. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah.
But it is, that is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not really sure I really have a grand, like a takeaway from this it's really solid. I'm still kind of processing it, but I think it's interesting because, I don't know, I mean, how to deal with people like this is kind of $1 million question. Like, no one really has the definite answer to it, and some of these tactics work really well, but then on sometimes these people, even are open to, like, something like you're describing with this show, where it's like, we're literally going to use the show to kind of, like, engage and have a contest, and maybe the outcome is they look stupid, but then a lot of times these people, like, invite you to come onto their own platforms, and the intention is they want to do that to you, and they realize how powerful the framing of, like, media and shit like that is. And I know a lot of people that are, like, podcasters and comedians and stuff who have kind of like a no interaction policy, because they're like, they benefit from it every time. And I tend to lean that way, but also, I fucking roast these people all day, and I fucking fuck with them because I can tell they don't like it. And so, like, I guess where my big galaxy brain is going with all this is, like, can we use comedy to fuck with these people who are using comedy to radicalize shitheads,
We can. I really think we can. And, maybe that perspective shifts or changes, but it's been working for me for the past, 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And, like, the Chris Sky saga in particular was something that was foisted upon me. I had done up to that point over 100 editorial cartoons with barely a reaction from anyone who was in them. It generated engagement among my followers and, wherever the comics spread, but I wasn't fighting with our premier or the prime minister or the mayor or anything even close to that. So he invited himself into my life, and I kind of wanted to take it, tackle it, deal with it on my terms head on. And I was prevented from doing that. And I feel still a little bit robbed of that title shot, so to speak. But it is, the bottom line, I think, is that, if we had the answer and we knew sort of what strategies 100% of the time are going to work, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I think that there's room for diversity in tactics, and things need to be still done thoughtfully, right? And there's ways for even comedy to backfire. But I think that there's a material difference in platforming someone for their ideas and ridiculing them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like a Venus flytrap or something. Like a good way to do this maybe is to lure them in and make them think that they can, win with a 15-minute set, and then they actually look like shit and everything. I don't know. Well, so right. How's this play out after this? I mean, what's going on right now?
So there was a bit of fallout from that, and again, I feel that some of the criticism was a bit unfair. Because there was a lot of thought put into how this would be structured. And there's a very natural tendency, perhaps, and maybe especially nowadays, to jump to conclusions and make assumptions and then double down, triple down on those positions. So that's kind of the aftershock I'm dealing with. But for my part, I want to continue what I've been doing, which is documenting the sort of this rising and growing movement, because whatever is happening with case counts and COVID deaths, these people aren't going anywhere. So that's my focus, and continuing to deal with that as in a humorous way, because that's how I personally process things. And there's room for serious podcasters. There's room for like the no nonsense approach, and there's room to criticize and say that maybe I humanize too much, and that's not helpful to the greater effort. But what I've seen play out in my comment sections and like DMs is people who arrived initially to attack me and just kind of hung around and kept consuming the content that was outside of their usual consumption patterns. And, I am not at all the anti-mask messiah, but I've had many, many private conversations with people where in the end, I'm pointing them to resources that I think are more helpful, or, and it's very incremental. Don't get me wrong. The purpose of this show was to see if it could be done on a wider scale. And I'm still committed to trying that out. It'll just be in a different venue. And I'll be smarter about announcing where that is.
Yeah.
Right. It seems like a really delicate balance, because I feel this a lot of the time too when I'll hear football players or whoever saying like, I'm not going to get the vaccine, and you get angry at first, right? But that's not always the most convincing way to change somebody's mind, is to just yell at them. But it does seem like ridiculing their leaders, or in this, someone like Chris Sky, who you're not going to convince, right, is having an impact, because people who follow him are seeing that maybe this isn't all it's cracked up to be. But how has Canada's, because we're mostly an American audience. But down here, it seems like the mainstream media anyway, is Canada's one of those great examples, just like New York, where the COVID response was so professional and responsible and safe. But what has the reality been, and what are some of the elements you think that are behind this anti-mask movement now?
So, I mean, it really depends on what province you're looking at to say whether the response has been adequate or good. And also, just kind of for comparison, right? So our provincial leaders, equivalent to a state or a governor, they have certain responsibilities and powers, and then there's the federal government that has certain responsibilities and powers.
Right.
And so, on a national scale, I think that we've done satisfactorily, in dealing with the pandemic. But in Ontario, which is where I'm based, we happen to have a very hapless and incompetent and corrupt leader. So he has botched the pandemic response on a number of fronts, which actually gives fuel to these anti-lockdown, anti-mask movements. Right. And so there's an irony in the fact that many of these folks would have elected this guy because he is a conservative leader. Many of them probably started off liking him, but now there is really strong rhetoric against him within sort of this movement. So it is polarizing in the sense that it's pushing people to even further extremes on the political spectrum. And there's the political response, I think, underestimated how angry people would get after 15 months of touch and go policy that seems really arbitrary because it is really arbitrary. And our premier just gave a lot of room for people to criticize the response and to genuinely believe that it's unfair how things are being handled, because it was unfair. They're just reaching sort of different conclusions about whether the pandemic is real or, to what extent is this a government op. And, that's where things go off the rails.
And so the premier is Doug Ford, who that name might ring some bells. He was the brother of Rob Ford, who, of course, was mayor of Toronto. And I actually live in a city, D.C., that had a now-deceased crack-smoking mayor. And I will say ours was better than Rob Ford. But it seems sort of strange maybe to outsiders that this province would elect somebody associated so closely with Rob Ford, but there is a strong social base, it sounds, for the Fordism, if you will. What is that base, and is there a split kind of on the COVID question? So
I mean, that is like a political dynasty family, I suppose, because their father also was in politics. So and there's other relatives who have kind of made their way. Doug Ford also ran to be mayor of Toronto and lost, and felt a ways about that, and then ran for the premiership, to be political leader so that he could run for premiership. Mm-hmm. And that was quite contentious as well. There was someone else whose name is Patrick Brown, who was arguably the forerunner, and then a scandal came out about him, and it shifted things. And Doug Ford he can be charismatic at times, and sort of had these very simplistic policies of buck a beer. We're going to stop the gravy train. We're going to, things that were really appealing to people. And
so just people, the buck a beer, that was related to alcohol tax, right?
Quite literally, he wanted to have sort of, his promise was that there would be beer available for $1.
Oh, a buck a beer.
No, so as stupid and simplistic as it sounds, that was his main. It doesn't have it there is no buck a beer. He also promised lower electricity rates. They've increased significantly. I mean, just.
He was describing malt liquor, which with the crack smoking, I mean, that's a whole afternoon.
Two stallions should run on menu items.
And so how they got elected at the provincial level, there's a lot of rural support, and he really, because of his personal beef with Toronto and the GTA, kind of leveraged some of the internal no one likes Toronto in Ontario. No one likes Toronto anywhere, I guess. We're good. But, they think we're jerks. So he was able to use some of that momentum. And they, we came out of a fairly long-standing, liberal premiership, right? So in any kind of politics, it only lasts for so long, and then the other side wins. So there was, a decade or so of the other side being in charge. How far apart these two sides are is a subject for another day. But that's kind of what happened in 2018. And it was like, how bad could it be? But, it turns out pretty bad when there's like a global emergency and we're dealing with someone who purportedly didn't know how to use a laptop until like May of this year.
Whoa.
So
respect.
Not in good
Damn.
shape. We're not.
That's funny, because that used to be like a sign of sort of machismo among politicians in the U.S. It'd be like, oh, I don't know how computers work, but that was in like the 90s. By that logic, I'm a very masculine person myself, but...
My esteemed comrades, I just learned to read.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that all makes sense with that weird, like, kind of culture war underlying, faux populism thing. Oh, with the real people that live out here in the sticks.
Knowing how to do things is suspect, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Because then people think you're up to something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny. All right. Well, so where are we at? How can our listeners support you in your ongoing battle with Chris Sky and his gang of weirdos?
The miscreants. I am very active on Twitter, so that's where most of my action goes down. My handle is Caryma, Caryma, rules, RULES. That's also the domain for my website, carymarules.com, or you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at Caryma Sa'd. And that's where the magic happens. I make comics, I do videos, and really just, offer my little perspective on what's going on, because I think that there is a deeper issue that, if we don't take it seriously, and I say that despite the fact that all I do is make jokes, but if we don't actually kind of contend with what's happening, we're going to be blindsided, and there's no justification for that because it's playing out in slow motion. Mm-hmm. So that's where, find my takes on Twitter pretty much.
Cool. Totally. Well, yeah, I mean, as a, fellow creative and stirrer up of shit, I salute you. Yeah, keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for coming on. All right. Okay, that was the episode, everybody. It was a fucking episode about art. What is
That was
it?
fun.
And fighting with art. I don't know who this character is I'm doing. He's like
Who is this man?
art.
I'd love to hear more about him.
Like Scorsese or somebody like that, maybe? What you gotta do is you gotta fight with the art. Satire.
No, Scorsese's a little more quick. His voice is, like this.
Do you talk like that?
It-
Yeah,
It's definitely a
very quick
regional.
I've heard that he does not like marijuana because it slows you down. He does like cocaine because it speeds you up.
He seems like
That
he
makes-
likes cocaine.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense to me that you said that.
Yeah.
You know why? Because his art is fast. It's so fast.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Fast. Okay. I mean, does this make sense as a thematic episode? We got there's the anti-fascism and satire and cops and alt-right shit.
Oh, I totally got it. I've been getting great reviews from the listeners.
Yeah.
They love this episode. They're going out, they're making their art. They're doing cocaine. Everyone loves this episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone loves cocaine.
I've been sent several finger turkeys by adoring fans since we started.
That would make sense, actually, because they're stupid children.
Do you call them finger turkeys or hand turkeys?
Hand turkeys.
Hand turkeys, because you need
Finger
the palm.
turkeys is... I'm sorry I said that. That's like a new thing we're starting, and it has no place in this show. Don't send me a finger turkey. I've received several hand turkeys.
Yeah, no, that's weird as hell. Finger turkey.
I'm not even joking. I was going through shit in my room, and somebody, when I was on tour in Chicago, gave me a hand turkey. And was like, I like your podcast. Here's a hand turkey.
Oh, man. Our fans are weird. Somebody made me, like, they worked at a greeting card company, and they, like, used the stuff that they used to make pop-up, like, greeting cards. And they made me a greeting card that had, like, a cab and, like, a cop car on fire. It was fucking cool. It's probably the coolest thing anyone's ever given me.
If you have a crayon creation to send Jake, his address is as follows.
Yeah.
Long beeping noise.
You could figure it out. I think if people really... There's people probably know where I live. But I'm not going to tell you. You have to engage in the hunt.
It's hidden in the episodes. It's like
a scavenger
like a
hunt.
decoder ring kind of situation.
That's what a Bushwick is. It's just a scavenger hunt to find Jake's house.
Yeah, it's like the Michael Douglas movie, The Game, but you're trying to find my house, and I'm like leaving clues everywhere, and I'm like, is it over here? Is it behind this bodega? No, the bodega guy's an actor, and he's in on it.
You know a glue factory is involved, hotshot.
Yeah.
But what else?
Follow the glue. Follow the sound of the glue.
Right.
Yeah. There was a clown car there one time. I don't know. Shit.
Well,
have you ever seen that movie, The Game?
No, I haven't.
It's
I know Mikey Doug's is in it, but I'll have to watch that.
It's on Netflix right now. It's very fun, and it's dumb as shit. But it's like... he's like a high-powered CEO guy in the 90s, and like for his birthday, someone gives him like it's essentially like the concept is like a very elaborate like escape room kind of thing. Like you go to this company and then you do all these psychological surveys with them, and they get inside your head, and then they like specifically design a weird gaslighty situation where you're like, you know, people are chasing you through the streets and stuff, and you're like finding you go to a payphone and it's ringing, and then there's like a key inside of it, and you have to find where to put the key to, and all this shit. It's ridiculous.
That's a birthday present?
Yeah.
That's something you would give to someone as a gift?
I think the idea is that some people are so rich they need like extra, you know, like they need to do all this crazy stuff or whatever to fulfill their...
Like the Most Dangerous Game.
Most Dangerous Game also, yeah, essentially kind of the same thing, except in the game, Michael Douglas becomes the hunt Ed, kind of, whereas in Most Dangerous Game, that's when a rich, bored person becomes the hunter.
Right.
And they hunt Ice-T in the 90s version.
In the industry, we call it a reverse rat race.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I actually met a player of a game, a Most Dangerous Game as well, American football, last night. Wanted to make sure to talk about this.
What did you want to say about this exactly?
There's a lot to say. We could do an entire episode on this. This is one of the greatest moments of my life, meeting Frederick Smoot, who goes by Fred, but Fred Smoot, the mouth of the South, as he's known.
Cajun style.
Yeah, I think he might be from that region. But he is a former defensive back for both the Washington football team and the Minnesota Vikings. So he is like in the top tier of people that I've always wanted to meet. And he was at a thing right by my apartment that I went to. They were installing new gambling facilities. And there was like not that many people around. It was awesome. And I got to hang out with him. And we talked. We first of all had a debate about the name because he's a big proponent of Red Wolves.
Celebrities love when you debate them. That's one of my favorite things.
He's a very, nice guy. So he was cool with it. He heard me out. He had some good points. He says that the entire stadium's gonna go, ooh.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's hard to argue with.
Wolfpack.
Yeah. I still think it should be hogs, but what are you gonna do?
The entire audience during hogs is like squeeze, squeeze. Oink,
Yeah.
oink, oink,
Oink,
motherfucker.
oink, 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 oink. That'd be so much fun. Yeah,
There's a guy just rolling in mud, like one of the big fat guys.
But one thing we did get into that this is a very interesting event. Is the Love Boat scandal. Are you guys familiar with the Love Boat scandal?
Go on.
So, 2005, Minnesota Vikings, during the season, had a bye week. They had a week off, and the coach was like, find some, team building exercise to do with the rookies, and just get, we need more chemistry on our squad. So, they rented a boat in Lake Minnetonka, which is in this very affluent suburb, hired a bunch of strippers and sex workers, and had basically an orgy in the middle of Lake Minnetonka. And this was like...
Wait, who did this? Sorry.
The Vikings. Fred Smoot.
Okay.
He was the one who orchestrated the whole thing.
Okay.
And then there was...
You dog!
Yeah. And Dante Culpepper was there. We don't know if he actually... Because he's married, so we don't know what he actually did. But
They did it on a boat like Vikings would. That's
exactly. Cool. And that's what Fred Smoot said, because it was it was like 9/11 had happened in the Twin Cities at the time. And Fred Smoot was like, I was talking to them about this last night, and he's like, how are you going to name yourselves the Vikings and then blame me for getting into character?
Right, exactly. Like, you
Yes.
can't be mad at Vikings for having a boat sex.
Right.
For a lot of people, 9/11 was like when football players have sex on a boat.
Right. Oh, my God. Because people were traumatized from seeing these sex acts. Infamously, Bryant McKinney, who was an offensive lineman, held a girl with her consent. He placed her buttocks on the bar and then performed cunnilingus in front of a bunch of people.
Were you all there? How do you know this?
It was.
They're like, did you
word gets
the
around?
News?
Yeah, well, yeah, word gets around. It was widely reported. People freaked out, and that move, by the way, Fred Smoot calls going through the briar patch, in his words. And
What?
at the time, and this was why it's so surreal for me last night, because at the time, I went to a charter school and we did not have sex ed, so I had to get sex ed from a church, like a Unitarian church.
Oh, no.
And we had to have a whole day where they just discussed how horrified they were that these guys were getting it in public, and it was like this is. Oh my God! This is, they think the rules don't apply to them because they're football players. Like, no, the rules do apply. They're allowed to have sex.
They
Yeah,
think
those
it's
are the
fourth and
rules.
down out there.
Right. And the best part was there's this, and this is how I brought it up to Fred, who's now we're on a first-name basis. But Chris Cluey, who is a very wacky guy, former Minnesota Vikings punter, who's extremely into Warcraft, and was...
Okay.
Yeah. And was a libertarian. Now he's kind of like, I think he's a Bernie guy. I'm not totally sure. But they interviewed him about this. He was not on the Love Boat because he's, a loner. He does his own thing, as Fred
He's a
explained.
lone wolf.
Yeah. And he
will
said...
never make love on a boat.
Well, he said, to his credit, he's like, we live in a free society. And if people are consenting to having sex on a boat that they have chartered, and it's in public view, they're still allowed to do it.
Libertarian guy is very concerned with the chartering. He's like, they chartered it.
Right.
It's all above board.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he
as is
wasn't
their
even there.
rights.
And he,
Non-aggression principle is upheld on this boat.
The international waters.
Right. He was defending their right to do it. And frankly, the reason behind this is, like, during this time, I think it was maybe a little later that this came out, but Ben Roethlisberger, quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, raped a woman and didn't get charged for it. And he's a white guy. And this was a huge, huge scandal in Minnesota. And it took like a year for them to go to court. And they got charges pressed against them. because there was this nice suburb, and all these rich white people were like horrified that that BBDs were out there, and in plain view of their.
Did you just abbreviate big black dicks?
Yes, BBDs were in plain view, and they were like walking.
Slang coming out again.
A guy like took a piss on somebody's lawn because he had to pee. Is in a boat, and that was like worth pressing charges and having like a really official court case where they had to it took like a year for them to resolve this. So that was just something I wanted to share. Very, very cool.
That's crazy.
To meet
well,
Mr. Smoot.
Speaking of Vikings and Warcraft, something happened with Vikings, and I'm trying to do Anders shit. Have you guys followed the fucking? Have you been following this thing that happened at Blizzard, the gaming company that makes World of Warcraft and StarCraft and Diablo and shit?
Little bit.
They've been having an Animal House.
Yeah, there was like I can't remember exactly how it came out, but there was like a piece was written about just like the bro-y, douchey culture of the company and all of the nepotism and sexism, and like if you're a woman in Blizzard, Todd gets your fucking job even though you worked harder for it and all this stuff, and apparently it's just guys sitting around drinking like IPAs from the company taps and shit, and apparently it's like fucking horrible. But something kind of interesting happened with it this week that I think maybe we might want to look into at one point, which is they hired a union busting law firm essentially, and it looks like they're starting to figure out that might be the direction this is going. And what the fuck is the firm?
Do they think union busting is going to help with like this massive scandal that they've brought on themselves? Like there's a guy recording everybody in the bathroom. Like this goes outside of labor law.
Yeah, I know, it's weird. I think that they think that that their workers are going to unionize, and so they're getting ahead of it. Because this firm, fucking, it's the one that just busted like Amazon. It essentially went down to Bessemer and convinced workers, you don't want to unionize. They take too many dues from you, or whatever. It's called Wilmer Hale. It's like one of the biggest fucking law firms in
Wilmer. My dad's from Wilmer, Minnesota.
Interesting. But I don't know. This could be interesting because they've sort of preemptively brought this in. I think the angle is that they're going to say, what you need is HR. All of these problems can be solved with HR, which seems to be this company's like MO or this law firm's MO or whatever. And as we know, HR is there to mediate, to protect the boss, It's like the opposite of it's the boss's union sort of mechanism. So I think it's kind of interesting because like, we might have a moment in gamer world where all of those fucking people maybe learn how this works, or not.
Yeah. It's a group that gets radicalized very quickly one way or another.
Usually in the worst direction possible. But I guess that may be my prediction here.
They have fast reaction times from all the gaming.
Yeah. But, it could be a teachable moment. Could be a thing to communism.
Yeah,
a bunch
there is... I just did a segment about this for Redacted. The gaming industry is a very terrible place to work. It's in a perpetual state of what is called crunch, where they're trying to get the game out. And as you know, there's like glitches and all this stuff that you need to fix, and some of it doesn't even get done before it gets out. And there's so much to weed through and do all this stuff. So instead of like hiring a bunch of people to do it, they depend on the same core of people and underpay them and rely on them to do this. And they don't have, in a lot of cases, a union. And I think the model for this is Hollywood, because we forget Hollywood is a really union. A lot of things about Hollywood I hate, but it's a union town.
Right now is like Hollywood in 1934.
Exactly. Yeah. Right, and that's why you have to have, people are like, well, these are temporary things, right? And it's true. A game, often to develop a game, it'll be only open, they'll create an LLC just for this one game, and then it'll shutter. And maybe that is the nature of the beast, but that's why you get a union for people who are, effectively freelancers. which is what Hollywood is, right? So you're guaranteed good pay, good benefits, good conditions, even if you're hopping from gig to gig.
There's sure as fuck enough money going around.
Yeah.
I have only spent my income on video games my entire life.
Yeah.
I own no things.
I spent my entire pandemic relief check on freemium content inside of, World of Warcraft or whatever.
There's a new Pokemon game where you score, where Pikachu slam dunks a basketball into a hoop, and it made my friend from high school so mad he woke his wife up.
Yeah, dude. Wait,
Screaming.
We have to play that on the fucking Twitch stream, man.
People lose their goddamn minds.
It looks badass.
Seeing Snorlax bust their rim.
Can we play Leisure Suit Larry on Twitch?
Maybe.
I proposed doing a Bernie fundraiser with Leisure Suit Larry in 2020, but Jeremy shot it down.
Oh, man.
That would, yeah. Does he look like the protagonist?
No, it's just the game is... It's like Activision Blizzard in there. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Imagine being on the team that had to produce Leisure Suit Larry. Like, there's not enough hair on these balls.
What if the team that made Leisure Suit Larry is actually like super woke, and in opposition to the Blizzard thing, they're like very.
It may be they're ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe that's an episode.
They're like, we're making
we got a lot of good
statement
ideas coming up
about Leisure Suit Larry's. Fucking god damn it! I was gonna do a riff about Leisure Suit Larry, and fucking Murray, my cat, came in here and jumped on top of the carrots I was eating earlier.
God damn it!
God damn it, Murray.
Murray, the power of satire cannot be held back.
Stop trying to fuck the Lola Bunny lady. She's a bunny and you're a cat.
Is he eating the plastic carrot bag? Is that what's happening?
He's trying to eat my fucking carrots.
They should make a sex ed game with cats, I think, because I understand why it is like maybe a little bit too vulgar to do like Ganguro Girl or Leisure Suit Larry or whatever for kids, but you get a sense of how the reproductive system works if you are a cat doing it with another cat in a video game.
I think you can find that on deviantart.com.
These interests have been widely explored, Anders. I'd highly recommend Google searches there.
Oh, other thing I want to bring up too, but the Love Boat thing. That would have been an opportune time, if not for the self-hating, sort of anti-sex attitudes of the people of Minnesota and the Unitarian Lutheran religion. Would have been a great time to get our own boat, and as a sex ed class, wade out there, float out and get the binoculars and watch as they are fornicating and having intercourse, and we would see visually how it's done. Right? Would have been a great opportunity for kids, and I'm sure it was educational for the children present.
You are out of your goddamn mind.
This is another thing you wanted to bring up. You had this like written down.
Yeah,
there should have been binoculars.
Right.
For kids.
I'm
assuming this happened
for the children to learn from.
This it had to have happened at night, right? Am I?
No, it was during the day.
Oh, okay.
It was like a brunch matinee.
Just a bunch of middle school boys with like notepads out writing down like be 7 feet tall, underline.
I saw some lady get canceled on Twitter the other day for basically making the same point Anders is making, which is she's like, there should be pornography for kids because it's like they just go straight into the hard stuff and then their brains are completely. Honestly, I'm not going to touch that point, but
there is. I got a book when I was a kid from the 80s that my mom had where it was pictures. And it was like, it's drawn and it was not derogatory or anything. And it just illustrated how it works.
I don't know, man.
How you're not going to, like,
I kind
how
of
are kids not going to do that?
It's like learning to swim where you just throw the kid into the pool or whatever. Like, this is part of life now is you just sort of are... At some point, you're going to have the internet just be exposed to the weirdest fucking shit ever, and then you just go from there.
The second you
I think they should be reached before that.
You're going to get blasted. There's no way around it. You're going to get too much of everything.
I think we should reach them before that and do sex-positive education. Maybe not probably not great for them to look at a sex party on a boat, but There should be visuals.
How
I think
is
of some
that
sort.
less? How is that more tame than normal porn of sex party with the Minnesota Vikings on a boat?
Yeah, that's actually
It just sounds like normal porn.
Right, that actually sounds like porn.
Well, that's the thing. It's a fine line, right? Because I remember getting this book and thinking, like, I'm not allowed to look at pictures of this on the internet, but I am allowed to look at, like, these 80s illustrations
We
that
gotta
are, like,
wrap
very
up.
scientific.
I gotta go.
Okay. All right. Speaking of, let's see. How do I segue here?
I know what you're trying to get to.
Right. You know what's where a lake, a huge lake that you can maybe access from Minnesota, not Lake Minnetonka, but if they had the Love Boat in the Great Lakes of Minnesota, they could have done a very long trip full of sex, a week maybe of nonstop sex till they get to Lake Huron. What is it? Erie? Lake Erie, in front of Cleveland.
Okay.
See what I did?
Uh-huh.
Cleveland as a
Not
lakefront.
yet.
And in Cleveland, the city of Cleveland and the surrounding region, congressional district, there is a special election for the Democratic nomination on Tuesday, in which our gal, Nina Turner, is contending with Chantel Brown, who is a pick of the establishment. So at first, people were very surprised a few months ago when it came out that Nina Turner was like beating everybody because there were a few different candidates, and she was winning by just tens of points.
Her campaign survived doing an event with me. I was on a panel that she was on a while back, and I was seriously like, this is going to destroy your campaign.
Yeah, I mean, her campaign is being plugged now on a podcast that just suggested children should watch public sex acts.
These are just all things you're doing. Your plug is for Nina Turner after the sex boat. That's all you.
Unrelated to all the rest of the podcast. Just vote for Nina Turner.
It was a
There's the reason why we don't interview many politicians, and this is why. So she was winning by a lot, and then the establishment consolidated around Chantel Brown and spent big time. She basically sent out press releases to super PACs, like kind of, not directly, but was like, give us money. Democratic majority for Israel.
Hillary Clinton poked her acid and endorsed Chantel Brown, as she is wont to do. She always endorses whoever is running against a progressive for, Hillary
Well, isn't
Clinton
that a good
reasons.
sign, though? Because doesn't she have a fantastic track record for losing?
It's the kiss.
Yes, she does.
It's the kiss of death. Yeah.
Right.
But another thing that happened is that a bunch of GOP have been endorsing and funneling money into Chantel Brown, like Republicans. This is a Democratic primary we're talking about.
Right, because they know they're not going to win. A Republican's not going to win that seat, so they want the best friend of Israel they can get, which is definitely and friend of big business too.
Yeah,
and that's Chantel. Also, Jim Clyburn has weighed in, and he admits that it was because Nina Turner was at an event with Killer Mike, and Killer Mike called him stupid for not getting any conditions for his endorsement of Biden. And
I bet he rhymed too.
Yeah.
Much more hurtful.
Right. And Clyburn's response was, well, if I'm going to be stupid, then I'll just be stupid the whole way. And he's going
I will ruin the state.
Yeah.
I'll show you stupid. And then he does something
right.
cool.
He's going to endorse what is hopefully a losing campaign, but it is looking pretty close. Things are tightening up. A lot of money flowing in there, bringing out the big guns on both sides, and they are also stooping to a very hilarious level. Recently, Chantel Brown was at an event with 12 people in which she gave a speech, and the response from the crowd it appeared it sounded like there were maybe 50 people there, just I guess off in the distance, whose voices carried, because this is just the most obviously manipulated.
I got it right here. So in the video, there are 4 people visible in a large field. There's a couple other people visible in lawn chairs that are watching something else, different event. They're in like the background. So it's like there's no one here, and here's how it sounds.
My political brother, my spiritual brother, my baby brother, Bashir Jones, Councilman Bashir Jones. Give it up for him. Councilman candidate for mayor, but again,
that was 4 people.
What about life? Things are going my way. So fast forward, election day comes, the polls close, and I was down by 6 votes. 6 votes. Down but not out. Disappointed but not devastated. As a child of faith, I've never been shy about my faith. As a child of faith, I said, okay, God, I trust your infinite wisdom. Maybe this isn't for me. And I was actually convinced I would never run for public office again. It's Sunday. Does anybody have a God in their spirit? But God. So 11 days later, I learned that there were 20...
All right, I don't know. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
Did Andrews just trick us into listening to a Chantel Williams speech?
Chantel Brown.
Oh.
Whoa.
Yeah. But yeah, you see the desperate... You see the desperate attempt there to see him. But, the fear could work. They're not going to get people to come out to these rallies, but they could demonize Nina Turner to the extent where she could pull it out. So it is why it rests on us, the left, generally, to intervene and phone bank. He got a couple of days to do it. If you're in Northern Ohio, please go out and canvass. And if you're not, then sign up for them phone banks, because this is a very important race, if only for the mere fact of spite, because if Nina Turner wins, Jim Clyburn will have to interact with her, and that is going to be so entertaining. She is not afraid to criticize the establishment, very outspoken member of Congress, and that is just going to be, I think, a big boost to the movement, and just having one more vote on the side of the people, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah, so right on.
Go to ninaturner.com if you want to sign up to volunteer.
Well, that's a great call to action, I think, to round this show out on. And I think as we bring your episode of PDA to a close today, let's just everyone give a round of applause for us and the good job we've done. God damn it. I fucking hear. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to the show. I Googled this and a fucking Lady Gaga video called Applause came up first, and it made me so mad. That's why I just said, God damn it. But anyway, thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. And what's that? Oh, thank you so much. We're doing such a good job here. Wow.
So many people in my apartment right now just bought backstage passes.
Yeah.
You did this.
That's basically what Chantel Brown did, is just use that laugh track, applause, canned thing. It's pretty funny. It's astroturfing. It's evil. She's probably going to win. Capitalism sucks. It fucks up liberal democracy. Okay.
Well, she might not, which if you phone bank for her, dear listener.
Hell yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think that is our podcast of the week. Let's do plugs and get the fuck out of here. Anybody got anything besides that?
At Andersley here on Twitter. Redacted tonight. Apologies to my hometown. I said I did a segment on Indy Welton and forgot to mention. I said she's the first socialist mayor of a major city in 50 years, forgetting about Jim Scheibel, who we've interviewed on this show. So sorry, Comrade Jim, and to the people of St. Paul. That's my plug. An apology to my hometown of St. Paul, Minnesota.
Well, there's egg on your face.
Yeah.
Good sir.
I apologize to no one. You can find me on Twitter at Patak Test Kitchen, your one-stop shop for exciting new flavors. I have 2 other podcasts. You can find them there. And that's my plug.
I want to apologize to the city of Houston, Texas, because I'm coming on tour, and it'll be my first set of the tour, which means it will be the worst one because I tend to write my material as I go on tour, so the end is always the best. But it's a punk show at a place called House of J, so I think it's actually rather on brand if I am not good, because that's actually good in punk logic.
The punk show, like there will be other bands there.
It's my buddy Nick Zachariah, who's been on the show, has like a series he's doing called Punks versus Comics, and it's like some comics and then some fucking punk bands, and like there's a cool commie punk band called Kim Jong Uno opening. And nice. I think maybe one or two other musical people. So that's fucking tight. Come on out if you're in Houston, in my hometown. And then also after that, we're going to go to Austin, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Albuquerque, El Paso, Phoenix, LA, and Las Vegas. Might have missed one or two in there. Maybe Santa Fe. I'm not sure. So that's it. August 13th is when the tour starts. I'm also going to do a set here in New York, I think on the 12th or something like that. Casual Sets, my friend Luisa Diaz's show, who I run my other show with, Why You Mad? I've completely ruined my brain podcasting. Check that out. Buy merch from us. Sign up for our Patreon. We have a ton of bonus episodes behind the paywall, and, this is how we survive. So, do all that shit, and I think that's all I got. Yeah.
Cool. It's Eat Your Carrots.
Eat your carrots. It's finished. BBDs. Big black dicks. Okay.